What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Billy Built. If you saw in my last video, you probably know by now that the dyno session went phenomenally with this car. It made incredible power and I'm super happy with it. I mean, we're talking 800 plus horsepower in a street car with only 25 PSI of boost. If you haven't seen the video, highly recommend going and check it out. If you watched it to the end of the video, we were targeting 30 PSI, but we couldn't quite hit that number. We would hit 28, 29, and it would kind of taper off, which tells me that it's more than likely a boost leak. Believe it or not, this morning I hopped in it to drive the car and, well, I found the boost leak as it was warming up. It didn't take me long. It was right at the intake manifold, which I assume happened probably when we removed the intake manifold and reinstalled it because I didn't have a spare gasket and it's the old gasket. So just gonna replace the intake manifold gasket and then retest it here. I did, however, already order a smoke leak detector. It's still brand new in the box. It was on sale last week and well, I figured I'd need one eventually anyways, and why don't I have one already? I don't know. It's here. I'll probably end up using it in this video. I just need to order some oil for it. Maybe I can get next day shipping or something like that. But I'm really just going to be going through and touching up on a bunch of little things that, well, we ran into issues with during the dyno session. One of them, obviously, like I just mentioned, being the boost leak. Second, well, my speedometer still is not working, which wasn't necessarily an issue for the dyno, but I need to get it fixed. And then number three, if you guys have been paying attention to any of my videos, I mean, it's not really that big of a deal, but I've actually had these sitting on my toolbox for, well, quite a while now. They're zip tied together, but they are rear subframe collar bushings, solid bushings. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to Evil Twins. If you guys haven't seen these in the background of any of my videos, they've been sitting here on my toolbox for quite some time now. Basically, he sent these out to me probably about 6 months ago, and I've been so busy I haven't had the chance to put these in because it hasn't really been a necessary thing, let's say. Well, now that the car is making some power, and we know it is, I probably want to drive it a little harder and get some launching done, and after I fix my speedometer, I'll be able to set anti-lag and practice launching on a closed road. Basically, these go on top of the rear subframe in the car and keep it from essentially floating. If you aren't familiar with the rear subframe in these, they don't completely make contact to the actual chassis of the vehicle. The subframe is just kind of floating in air, essentially. And that's going to take up that slack and reduce any kind of wheel hop that may be induced when launching the car, let's say at a track especially, or with any high traction, hard launching. With wheel hop, you can basically destroy your axles, destroy your drivetrain components. It's not good for anything as far as the drivetrain goes. So we definitely want to minimize the chance of wheel hop if at all costs. So hopefully I'll be able to launch the car very nicely with these simple subframe bushings. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with the subframe bushings and then I will turn around and get to the intake manifold because, well, you guys have probably seen me take this intake manifold off and put it back on several times. I also have one more thing that's coming in for the intake manifold because if you haven't noticed already, my brake booster is a little wonky, but we'll get to that. I'm taking care of that hopefully today. Okay guys, so if you look here on the lower part of the subframe, these subframe bushings pretty much just slide right up in there and then it gets bolted back into place, and that'll actually alleviate the slack that you may or may not be able to tell from the video. Yeah, you might be able to see it. There's a little bit of a gap here at the top. So it'll definitely improve the handling quite a bit and it'll keep the subframe from essentially floating down the road. So if you're at all curious about which way they go, there's only one way. Once you remove this collar, whatever you want to call it, off of the original bushing, it pretty much falls right in. You can clearly see the gap is now filled in up here. The subframe bushing sits right tightly against that. It just kind of gets wedged in here. Luckily, there's just enough thread on this bottom bolt to squeeze in this much spacer. So pushes the entire subframe up and it looks really clean in there. I'm not gonna lie, with the black metal anodized finish and all that fun stuff. So I got 3 more of these to do. The front ones are a little bit different, but I'm basically gonna do the other one the same way I did this one. So let's get at it. I know I probably mentioned it a few times on here, but I do still have the original Haltech bar, obviously. Mine was electric because it is a 94 car, technically. I think this was the first year of the Haltech. However, I just noticed it might be time to remove this because I don't think that my inner tie rods back here should be doing this. Oh, it goes from one side to the other. That's odd. What it's doing is it's like it's rocking inside of the rack tube. Might have to end up replacing that yet. Okay guys, so I ordered the smoke leak detector last week. It came in a couple days ago. The only thing I didn't realize is that it doesn't come with smoke oil. Unfortunately, that won't be here till tomorrow, which is very unfortunate because I work the rest of the week. But for now, I'm gonna show you guys real quick what I was hearing earlier on this motor. Earlier today, I pretty much just did a short cruise in the car, and while it was warming up, I was able to actually hear the boost leak from another room in the house, oddly enough. It was really weird. Then when I came out here, I was able to spot it right away. So I really didn't even need the boost leak tester, but I'm gonna use it anyways for the sake of this video and for you guys. With that said, I'm gonna start the car, let it warm up a little bit, and then I'll let you guys hear what I'm hearing. Okay, so as it went, I came out of this door from hearing a weird hissing noise from the other side of the door because I couldn't really hear the valve chattering on the other side of the door, and for some reason the hissing was more profound. So I came over here, I'm checking over this, I'm like, oh, yeah, I can definitely hear it. I start running my finger along the edge of the intake manifold here, making sure nothing's pinched, and then lo and behold, you hear that whistle? All I'm doing is putting my finger over the flange of where the upper intake meets the lower intake manifold. So probably just have a gasket that blew out, which fortunately I do have spare gaskets. Gotta pull the intake manifold, replace that gasket, and then once we get that done, we will then test for further boost leaks. So obviously that's a problem. Now that I know that that is for sure probably my primary cause of boost leak and why we're not hitting more boost than we are, I can at least start with that. And then after that, I think what I'll do with the boost leak tester is what I'm gonna do is separate basically the manifold from the rest of the intake piping, and then separate the charge piping from the rest of the car. So if you're not sure on which pipes see boost and which don't, biggest thing to remember is anything before the turbo, between the turbo and your air intake filter, never sees positive boost pressure. Everything after the turbo and to the throttle body sees positive boost pressure, including the intake manifold itself. Just important things to note. But for today, we're fixing some boost leaks. Let's get to this. If you look at the manifold gasket itself, it actually doesn't look all that bad. There's no like rips or tears in it. I will admit this one here is not an OEM gasket. This is I don't even know what brand this is. This was given to me by a friend of mine who had like a bunch of them. It looks like they were like pre-cut out of some random gasket material, and I was just using them up pretty much. And I think this is the last one I got, and everything else I got from here on is just the nice, well, not quite OEM, but they look OEM. Beck Arnley gaskets, they got the nice little black lip in here. That should help with sealing it a little bit better than this one does. So I'm gonna go ahead and swap that out, and hopefully this will take care of this boost leak anyway. I will say I also suspect that my factory blow-off valves might be an issue. They're factory, but they're not factory. I am using what's called the Goose Honk Killer kit on the factory 300ZX recirc valves. If you aren't familiar with those are, it's basically a little billet cap that's machined, and you just kind of cut the original one off, replace the spring that's on the inside, and slide this billet cap on with some RTV, and it seals up. I've been told that they shouldn't have any problems, but I don't know. I feel like that time is coming, and it's kind of, it might be up for those things, so we'll see. Okay guys, I'd be lying if I didn't say my old brake booster check valve system was a little bit on the ugly side. Pretty much had this 180-degree U bend going to this pipe, which looped back around to my check valve because it was complicated. It was way over complicated, and well, I'm coming up with this new device that'll make it a lot easier because I spent the money on a Earl's Performance brake booster check valve, and what this is it's pretty much a 5/8 inch barb on one side with a -6 AN on the other. So I'll be able to run a -6 90-degree off of this straight into here, and then this will go slide right on top of my brake booster check valve. Should be a pretty straight path right to this thing. So let me go ahead and get on that. Okay, so the final product of my brake booster check valve is basically going to be this. It's just a -6 to 45-degree barb nipple to a straight -6 to the Earl's Performance brake booster check valve. So it's nothing too crazy. It's nothing simple. It's way less crap than what I had before in it. The intake manifold is taken care of. Brake booster check valve is taken care of. Rear subframe spacers are taken care of. Now to move on to the speedometer and the wiring with that, because, well, obviously whatever I did, it's not working, it's not right. And since I've completed it, I've actually found the correct wiring diagram and an actual photo of it. So with that said, I gotta pull the wheel off, get in there, and just start checking over my wiring. I'll explain it to you guys along the way as I go. Okay, so I've got my transmission harness wiring kind of all pulled apart here. If you take a quick look, what I had to do, I'm using a 6-pin Deutsch connector. In the Merlin machine instructions, he's actually using a 4-pin Deutsch connector. So why I did this, I think I just saw 6 wires and was like, all right, screw it, I'll order a 6-pin. If you look here, I had to drop the wire gauge down to a smaller wire gauge to fit into the connector. And in doing so, I think I got this wire mixed up here. Now, the purple yellow wire, at least on the transmission side, this goes to the transmission straight to the speed sensor. There is a purple white and a purple yellow wire. These are the speed signal wires. From my understanding, you can use either or, and you can just program them as you need. We don't need to, so we could use technically either or. However, I somehow managed to mess that up. In doing so, I ran my purple yellow wire to the yellow black wire on the OEM chassis side of the harness instead of the blue wire. So therein has been my problem all this time. Hopefully I can just cut this here, flip it over, and then try it out and it'll work fine. All right, so the harness is all set up. I'm gonna now try, I got my bowler all-in-one harness app up and running. So let's see what we got. There it is. All right, so we got connection here, device selected, trying to connect. And this is what it looks like. Then I just changed the pulse count, set the speedometer. This is basically what it is. Okay, so let's see if we can get a speedometer up on here and up on there. put it in gear. Oh my God, look at the speedometer, it's working. Okay, let's see, which one is it? This one? I think we need to bring this pulse count. No, okay, it's not that one. Yeah, okay, let's keep it at about 8 miles an hour. You see I dropped the pulse count, the speedometer drops. I'm trying to get this 8 mile per hour matched up with that on there. All right, speedometer's working, finally. That was way easier than I thought. You know, I was just thinking about getting the speedometer working right now. It's kind of gonna work against me for YouTube anyways, because now I actually have to like drive to Mexico, because obviously we can't speed in America. Not that I was speeding before, it's just didn't really know how fast we were going before. But now that I actually know how fast I'm going, everything I do will just have to be in Mexico, across the border, or in Cuba. Cuba's not that far. I'll just put the car on a ship and then we'll be off to Cuba, you know, just like they do in like Top Gear, Jeremy Clarkson, all those guys. They just kind of like throw their car onto a boat and then skip across the river, right? That's okay. Let's put this back together. Okay, well guys, unfortunately my wow. As you can see, it's raining now. This is some nasty lightning we got going on. I'm not gonna drive the car tonight. I ended up having to run some errands and go to the store and get some bolts for other things. It's just been a total nightmare. And then there's that. Excuse me, I'm trying to film a video over here. Okay, long story short, this is gonna have to wait another day. At least for the driving. I may or may not get to the smoke leak test tonight. It literally just showed up for the smoke oil, but everything's buttoned up on here. The reason I was able to find that intake manifold leak so quickly, I will say, is mainly because, well, the car had a high idle, which tells me that, oh, that was not. I think I'm gonna go inside and we'll just have to finish this up another day because this is nuts right now. I'll get back to you guys another day. Hang tight. Hi, Billy from the future. I was just editing the video and I realized this is not the best way to boost leak test a car. I knew this going into it, but just the order of how everything showed up and the order that I had to get this done in such a time, don't exactly go by this as a way to boost leak test your car. I'll probably in the near future redo all of this and make another video strictly based on boost leak testing your car. So this is surely for my own good on my own car. And if you want to boost leak test your car, don't necessarily use this as a how-to guide. Okay guys, so the smoke oil finally came in. I'm gonna do this as well quickly as possible, I'm really on a tight schedule right now today. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do my best to explain to you guys how exactly I'm gonna run the boost leak tests on my motor. So if you look here, I got my smoke leak machine down here, and I got my one line that's going to inject the smoke into my intake pipe here. This is actually a charge pipe, and we call it a charge pipe because it sees boost, right? I call them intake pipes if they don't see boost. Charge pipes see vacuum until the vehicle gets in the boost, and then they eventually see positive boost pressure. Quick little disclaimer here, because what's going to happen is this is going to fill up the intake manifold, and it's going to go into this side over here, fill up the intercoolers all the way back to the turbos. Then once it fills up the turbos and the rest of the intake system, it's eventually going to be coming out my air filters in the front. For right now, this is just a smoke leak test. There's no positive pressure being injected into the system. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this machine on, start injecting some smoke into the intake tract, and we'll see what happens. So I got 12 volts and a little switch here. I'll turn that on. Obviously make sure this is filled with oil. And look at that. We already have one fitting that's leaking. Oh, because I didn't tighten that down. So as you can see, everything's pretty much checking out over here. The only smoke that's coming out is coming out of my air filters, which is perfectly okay. Obviously they suck in air, so therefore if it's not capped, it's definitely gonna let smoke out. So the other thing that I'm gonna do here, because now I injected smoke this way, I injected smoke this way, I'm just gonna put it all back together, and I'm gonna do one more thing, and that's gonna be to remove the air filters, make sure all my intake pipe clamps are tight, and then I'm gonna inject smoke into the entire system, and then also inject air into it to pressure test everything. Now with the smoke in combination with the pressure, I'll be pushing smoke out with the pressure if there is any kind of leak. Because right now the smoke is just kind of lingering through, finding any kind of small holes and small cracks. But with pressure, it could open up new holes and new cracks that weren't there without pressure. That is really the biggest difference between a smoke leak test and a boost test, because, well, with a boost test, you'll be able to find that. But if you do them both in conjunction with one another, I think that is ultimately the best way to look for any kind of boost leak in a car, no matter what it is. Okay, so now what I have here, I have set this up again so that it is going the smoke into one side of the intake, and I got a pressure cap on the other side. So what I'm doing is I'm injecting smoke on this side, and then I have a pressure cap over here that I can hook a air hose up to. I put a little bit of air pressure into it. Oh wow, got a huge leak over here. So that's actually coming from the intake pipe going into my turbo. Honestly, I'm not too worried about that as I am if it's something like on this side here. Alright guys, so this is pretty much my setup right now. I'm not gonna lie, the fitting that I have in this pipe is not sealing up 100%, so it is leaking a little bit out of here, but I'll at least be able to test everything else in here and listen for another leak somewhere else. So it doesn't look like it wants to hold much more than about 7.5 psi, which is unfortunate. For some reason, this fitting is not sealing up like I expected it to. I just can't get it to seal, honestly. But as of right now, I ran the smoke leak test, boost pressured it until about 10 psi. I found my main primary boost leak, which was up here in the intake manifold. I think I'm gonna call it right there, you guys, at least for today. Okay guys, I know I said that, well, I need to go test drive the car, but we're actually gonna go to ZCon in Tampa. So while I'm test driving it at the end of this video, you guys can follow me along next video, and we'll have some video content for you at ZCon. It should be really good. I swung in Monday just to say hi and talk to a few other friends, meet up with some new faces. But it's a full week-long thing. If you're not familiar with it, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So let's get in the car, let's get over there. Oil pressure's good. Reverse. And we are on the way. So from the looks of it, I got it pretty well dialed in here. We're right at 40 miles an hour. Speedo shows right at 40 miles an hour. Traction, so there's that. The roads are still wet. As far as the subframe spacers go, well, the car is a little bit more rough. I can feel that, not even gonna lie. But you know what? All in the sake of performance, it's acceptable. Speedometer's working great. But anyways, you guys, I think that's gonna do it for this one. Hope you all enjoyed it. I'm going to ZCon, and I'll catch y'all next time. Take care.